Let your verdict give us the answer.
Sir, let us start somewhere very close to the beginning. Your father was a very famous trial lawyer.
Trial lawyer, yes. If I may begin with my name, I am Vaidyanathapuram Iyer, Krishna Iyer. Vaidyanathapuram is the village in Palghat district to which I belong. That's why I am V. And R is Iyer, my father's name. We Tamils usually have the village name and the father's name as part of our full name.
Yes, sir.
So that's why I say I am Vaidyanathapuram Iyer, Krishna Iyer. My father Iyer was himself a lawyer, and so I became a lawyer. He was, as you said, a trial lawyer. Essentially a trial lawyer. Of course, he used to appear in many cases in the district court, which is the first appellate court. And eventually, in a few cases, he had appeared in the High Court here also. But by the time I had become a High Court lawyer, so I did all his cases in the High Court. He was very successful both as a civil and a criminal lawyer. So I myself was not a civil lawyer, but a civil and criminal lawyer, because my father was that. I followed his pattern, and he was a very successful criminal lawyer. And also cross-examining was his specialty. He did very well in the cross-examination witnesses. Following his example, I became a civil and criminal lawyer early in my practice. And that way, it's our luck in the profession, legal profession. I was able to shine both as a civil and a criminal lawyer at the trial level and at the appellate level.
If I may stop you there for a second, sir. Which courts, which districts did you practice in initially?
I began my practice in Tellicherry. My father began his practice in a small village, in a small municipal court called Koirandi. That is only a taluka. But he was so successful and required to appear in many cases outside that district and that taluka that he switched over to Tellicherry, where you had a district court. Tellicherry, curiously enough, has the oldest bar in the south. It recently celebrated 200 years of the bar, or perhaps the oldest bar in this part of the country. That's because they were, before Madras High Court, they were in the Bombay High Court. They were under the Bombay High Court. And the Bombay High Court was started when the East India Company came into this country. The East India Company, under Queen Victoria, at that time, we had three courts, chartered high courts as they were called, Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. My father was an advocate of Madras, was not even an advocate, if I may say so. You asked me about my father. He belonged to a poor family. In that sense, I also belonged to a poor family. My grandfather was a schoolmaster, was a teacher in a primary school. I think his salary was 2 rupees or 3 rupees per month. Of course, that is equal to 2 lakhs today. This was long, long ago, and my grandfather, I am myself 95. My grandfather must have been 195 now. So 200 years ago, 2 rupees was salary for him. He had 2 sons, both of them were lawyers. He could not afford to educate them in the law college. So when they passed, they graduated, because Palghat had a Victoria College, which was a good college, and he could graduate there. But beyond that, to go to Madras for law college was beyond his means. So my father was a pleader. That is, without taking a law degree, you can still practice in a particular court. In those days, that was the practice. But if you have been a pleader for 20 years or some such long period, you become an advocate. And so he became an advocate. And as an advocate, he practiced in Tellicherry district court. And I also followed him as a junior to begin with. But before long, I could excel him. It all depends, you see, in the court. If you are lucky, you get good practice. And if you are successful, more clients come. That's how I became a successful civil and criminal lawyer of Tellicherry. That's how my father also was successful in that place.
So then you entered public life. You entered public life then. Member of the opposition in the Madras legislature?
That is true. But then they are disconnected pieces. I was practicing in Judiciary, but before that, when I was a good student in the Victoria College, and I used to read a lot of current contemporary politics in the Victoria College in those days. They used to have foreign journals, especially British journals. 19th century and after, 20th century and after, these where socialist articles used to come. Just what is his name? Professor in London University, Professor, where all our great scholars, lawyers were there. They were all professors. Even Nehru was very much influenced by Professor.
Fabian socialism, sir. Fabian socialism?
Yes. Legend, Fabian socialism came from that professor,
Okay.
great professor. He fashioned Krishna Iyer, he fashioned Nehru, all these people were his students, and his name was a great name even in India, where young men go to England, they were his students. That's how it is. And his articles used to appear in the foreign journals, socialist, Fabian socialist. And I also was ideologically tending towards Fabian socialism in my thought. And when I became a lawyer, that got strengthened, because actually the realities of India would compel any conscientious man to become a Fabian socialist. And at that time, I was under the influence of Nehru. Nehru was a great influence on me, and he was a Fabian socialist. He was not a communist. In fact, he was not a communist at all, because communist principles were two vices which he could not tolerate probably. One was dictatorship or the proletariat. Dictatorship. He was a democrat, every cell of him. And the other thing about him was violence. These two he did not agree, nor did I. So I was also conditioned by Nehru, Fabian socialist, and Professor Lasky.
Yes, sir.
Professor Lasky, it did not occur to you, I don't know. I forget it because I am old, 95, you are young. Professor Lasky influenced me very much. Jawaharlal Nehru influenced me quite a lot. So ideologically, I was conditioned to be a Fabian socialist in my law college. When I came to Tellicherry, you asked me the question how I went into public activities. What happened was, with a Fabian socialist outlook, when I set up practice, there were a number of workers' cases. They could not afford to pay a rich lawyer. They came to me, and my ideology agreed with the workers' interests and causes. So I began appearing against mill owners. There were few in Tellicherry side, Kannur district, and I appeared for workers. So many cases of workers I was appearing. At that time, there was a very powerful peasant movement in Kerala, particularly in North Malabar. Tellicherry was the center of North Malabar. And so peasant cases, peasant revolt cases, landlords demanding, refusing to concede and peasants insisting upon their rights. So I used to associate myself in many cases where these peasants revolted, there were criminal cases, so they had to be defended, and I defended them. Thus, I became associated with the interests of workers and peasants. And I joined the bar in 1938, and I became very popular with the workers and peasants of those days. Those days, mainly they were communists. The congressmen were there, leftist congressmen also supported these people, but not many, it was all communist. So when the elections came in 1951, I think it is 51. My memory is also very vague because I am so old now. You call me a legend, yes, but you call me living legend. I am dead legend. Anyway, when the elections came, the communist workers and peasants said Krishna Iyer must be our candidate. I said, I do not agree with many things communist. Your dictatorship, I cannot agree at all. Similarly, your violent movement as gaining power, for gaining state power, also I do not agree. Peaceful democratic movement is what I am committed to. So I cannot. So they said, we accept your principles, all right, but be our candidate. That is how I became the candidate in 1952. And I opposed the Congress. The Congress had its own candidate, and there was a socialist candidate. I opposed a socialist candidate, a Congress candidate, and luckily I won. That was at a time when Malabar was part of Madras. So naturally I became an MLA in Madras. And in Madras the Congress did not have a majority, really did not have a majority. But what happened was, this Rajaji, who was Governor General, very high office, later he became Home Minister in the central government, Delhi. Madras was Congress, but they had lost majority. They could not accept the position of being the opposition. They wanted to have power. Suddenly they decided to have Rajaji. Rajaji, you know, is the cleverest Indian at his time. Rajaji belonged to Madras state. He was also a criminal lawyer. Probably the idea occurred to him, why not I become the chief minister? So Sri Prakasha was the governor at that time of Madras. Prakasha was also a great statesman, so a politician. In his own right, apart from being a congressman and all that, he was a politician. So suddenly we found, one day, Rajaji descends to Madras from Delhi, gets nominated as a council member. Those days we had legislative council, legislative assembly in Madras, 2 houses. He was nominated as MLC and he announced himself as the chief minister, nominated chief minister. And I was in the opposition. They tried to win me over to the Congress, but I declined. I said, I have been supported by opposition people when I was elected, and I cannot, on principle, I can only oppose the Congress, I cannot join them. So we had an assembly in Madras, and I was in the opposition. And the curious thing that happened was, Rajaji was going to face a no confidence motion because he did not have a majority. But being a very clever man, his politics was very shrewd. He negotiated with the Muslim League, which was never part of the Congress politics. In fact, Nehru had come to Connecticut at about that time, earlier, and he had said the Muslim League is a dead horse. That is what Nehru said. But here was Rajaji negotiating with the leader of the Muslim League, who had 6 seats in Madras, all Malabar people, Muslim League people. Anyway, with their assistance, he would get a majority of 3 or 4. So he negotiated with them and told them, you are not members of our Congress party, but you will be members of the legislature party. That is the only ground on which he could accept. Otherwise, the Congress party will never agree to the Muslim League becoming a Congress party member. The MLAs will become a Congress. So we faced a no confidence, not a no confidence motion. Shrewdly, Rajaji knew that there would be opposition to him. So as we assembled on the first day, Rajaji moved a resolution. This House affirms its confidence in the government led by C. Rajagopalachari and sat down. People thought he would go on arguing and then we can beat him on his arguments and demolish him. But the man would not argue. He simply said one sentence and sat. So there were our distinguished people, T. Prakasham. Then T. Prakasham was Andhra Kesari, very outstanding patriot, congressman. But he was also preparing to meet this man after he heard him. But if he would not speak, what are we to do? So they were not ready for fighting him. Ramamurthy, P. Ramamurthy, who was a leading communist at that time, he told me, Krishna, we have a reputation to lose because I am a communist leader, Prakasham is a Congress leader, Tenyathi Vishwanathan is also a Congress leader. We have all a reputation. You have nothing to lose. You are some unknown person from Tellicherry. You are coming here as a young lawyer. People even do not know from where you come and which party. You know politics. So you better meet this man. So I spoke against the confidence motion of Rajaji. I said, we do not accept such avatars who come from Delhi and overnight become MNCs and move governments. We oppose this avatar cult of Rajaji. What is his background? He is really a congressman. We do not agree with his politics in this country. The country of poverty, a Congress has no poverty politics. Without socialism, you can never become solve the problems of India. And this man does not say he is a socialist. Therefore, we oppose this motion. But we did not have a majority because the Muslim League supported him, Rajaji. So he won. So we carried on. We walked out to the house. Tenyathi T. Prakasham said we boycott. When the governor came and made his speech, we walked out. Then Rajaji brought a resolution of censure because he walked out to the house when the governor was speaking. It was a disrespect to the house, and that was passed. So he got a censure motion against us. That's how then people began to wonder. The press were gathered. Press found here is an unknown lawyer from Tellicherry coming and making a speech, but he speaks more powerfully than the communists. All the points of the communists he is putting forward without the jargon of the communists. They were surprised. So they began asking me, who are you, from where did you come, and what is the questions you are going to ask me, what is your communist background? Then I told them this is how I became a leftist lawyer in Tellicherry in a small way. Now I get an opportunity to speak, I spoke. Earlier, the Annamala University, there was a powerful union. And at that time, I was an active participant in the Annamala University union speeches. So I had the art of public speaking from my university. Like the Delhi University, Delhi Union, you have Delhi University Union, you have people who train themselves in speeches. Oxford, you have that kind of thing. We had also borrowed from the Oxford cult of public speaking in the Annamala University. In fact, my real education began in the Annamala University. Vast library, glorious library, fine public speaking opportunities, and many issues where distinguished people came and spoke and we opposed. All that stood in good stead when I became an opposition member. and I opposed Rajaji. At that time, very severely I used my English. At that time was also fairly good. And I spoke. That is how it began.
And then, sir, you became a part of the government.
Eh?
You became a part of the government.
No, I did not become part of the Madras government.
Later, in the Kerala government.
Later on, things changed, the politics changed. States reorganization came. The Kerala state was formed. So Malabar became part of Kerala. Malabar otherwise was part of Madras, when I was there and I was the opposition. And I was not exactly a communist, but the communists had supported me, and I was sitting in the opposition, and the communists were supporting me, I was supporting the communists. That way we went on. And in 1956, I think the Kerala state was formed, and at that time we separated from the Madras legislature, and then there was a fresh election for Kerala. All the MLAs from Malabar were members of the Madras legislature, of the Kerala legislature. Later, when the election took place, I again was a candidate from Tellicherry. Kuthuvaramba is called. It's all the same, part of the same constituency. And I won again, and thus became an MLA of the Kerala Assembly. At that time, the new phenomenon was the Communist Party in Kerala had a fairly strong party and large number of MLAs. And EMS was their leader. EMS, who lost in Madras, had by a few votes, 9 votes or so he lost. Otherwise, he was in prison at that time, but still he had a huge majority. And in the Kerala Assembly, he won. So he became the leader of the Marxist Party, the Communist Party in those days, CPI. And he told me, Krishna, you must become a minister. I said, I have a fairly successful practice. And to do that and come for your small salary as a minister is difficult for me. Why should I come? And I was not on the political party mode. I was too independent to be a party member. And ideologically, I did not wholly agree with the Communist Party either. He said, all that doesn't matter. Be a minister, you must come. Ultimately, I agreed. Although there was opposition from my father, there was opposition from my wife. All these people said, why are you sacrificing your politics? You just begun your young lawyer. I said, no. I yielded to Namboodiripad and became a minister. And to my great surprise, Namboodiripad trusted me so much that he gave me law, home. For a communist government to give home portfolio to a non-communist is surprising, because power is home, police is home. And then the Tellicherry people said, what is the use of having policemen with you? You must have the people with you. So choose a portfolio where you have contact with the people and development of the people's interests. So I became irrigation minister and electricity minister, power and irrigation, social welfare, prisons. These were all my portfolio. In fact, I had portfolios enough which were later manned by 4 or 5 ministers. And luckily, I was a success as a minister. It was a great experience for me to become minister, to have power, state power for the benefit of the people. So I started new electricity projects, extraordinary projects. They were great ideas. As a matter of fact, I was appearing in a case as a lawyer, and the advocates, ultimately the parties, rich parties, they said, we do not want to go on this litigation, paying lawyers, case being adjourned. You better go and settle the matter. If you make a reasonable proposal, we will accept it. Both sides said. So I went to the top of a hill, for there was a waterfall, glorious to see. I thought this could be a an irrigation electricity project, hydel project. So in the assembly, Madras Assembly, I moved. What about this project? The irrigation minister in Madras said, the honourable member has some fantastic idea, there is no such project. But curiously enough, when I became minister for electricity in Kerala, I went to the same place with my electricity chief engineer. He said, what? This is a wonder. We will have a project tomorrow. So we started a project. The project was started, I laid the foundation stone, we completed it, it is now working very well. North Malabar is getting electricity through that project. But when the project was completed, I had become a judge. So for the after the project was completed, to inaugurate the completed project, the people said, the man who founded this idea, the idea came from Krishna Iyer. Wherever he is, whether he is a judge or a minister or a politician or not, he must come. So I was no longer in politics, I was no longer a party member, I was a judge. But they insisted, so I went as a judge and inaugurated that project. Similarly, there was another project in Polghat district, which was entirely my idea. And I started the project, started it, completed it, inaugurated it. And new idea was lift irrigation. Irrigation, we had Malambora project in Polghat. But the river flows, the dam, and beyond the dam, water flows. But then only lands below the water level could get water. It can't go up. When I became minister, I found quite a lot of water being lost because quite a lot of paddy lands were above that level. So I started lift irrigation, lifted the water out to that place and plenty of cultivation possible. So I became contribution, I was responsible for creative ideas which produced more rice, more paddy. Even now I wonder when we find that there is not enough rice in the state. My days, we had only 50%, and A.K. Gopalan had arranged for import of rice from Andhra because there he had communist friends. So we were all told that this A.K. Gopalan is selling the interests of money, resources of Kerala to Andhra because the Communist Party arrangement. So it was considered to be a scandal. Anyway, there was a commission, and Raman Nair was the judge who was the commission. If there was anything about Raman Nair's politics, about his ideology, it was anti-communist. So he said these people are likely to ruin the state financially. His report was against our party government, Communist Party. Anyway, there it is, and I became, my success as a minister was really remarkable in the sense I was able to do creative work, irrigation, electricity, for the whole of Kerala, electricity to give everywhere, to start new electricity projects, to have more irrigation, more cultivation, more agriculture. All these are, it goes to your soul. You feel so happy that you are contributing something to eliminate the starvation, the poverty of the people here. And that was my patriotic perception or vision. And I thought every creative minister in this state or in this country had not only, should also have a vision and a mission. Mission is, of course, because the masses are poor. You see a hungry people and you have big feasts and Onam and all this sort of thing. Onam is a fraud because you enjoy drinking, feasting while people are suffering. So that way I felt satisfied. As I said, told you, a spiritual satisfaction, apart from the material contribution you make, a spiritual satisfaction that you have contributed to the elimination of the poverty, you have contributed to the promotion of prosperity in Kerala. Then I became my whole career changed when I became a judge.
Can I stop you there for a second, sir, and ask you about land reform?
Yes.
Pushing land reform across.
Land reforms were essential for development in Kerala. We had a feudal term all over the country. we had a feudal period before industry. We were not an industrial state, country, but a feudal state. Landlords, big landlords, and tillers on the other side who were very poor. And at that stage, EMS had a brilliant idea. In fact, EMS made a remarkable contribution by saying, I am not going to bring communism in Kerala when I have become Chief Minister, but not for developing communism in the state. That is far too distant. But I will implement all the positive developmental resolutions of the Congress. The Congress had asked for land reforms. In their days, in their fighting militant days, they were also wanting land reforms. I'll adopt it here. So the Bhudan movement. Bhudan is land reform. So the Mudri part said we must have land reforms. And so we had land reforms. This lady, what is her name?
K.R. Gauriamma?
Gauriamma. She was the agriculture minister. In Madras, I had moved a resolution and a bill for land reforms. Malabar Agrarian Relations Bill I introduced. I had also made certain changes in the Malabar Tenancy Act. Rajaji had opposed it. I said this is very necessary for the people, whether they are Congress tenants or Communist tenants, it is necessary. Then he said, if all the MLAs of Malabar agree with your proposal that there should be a change in the Malabar Tenancy Act, I will withdraw my opposition, otherwise I will oppose. So I went after all the MLAs, Congress MLAs, Communist MLAs, Socialist MLAs, everybody supported me. So Rajaji agreed. So as an MLA in the opposition, I got 2 bills passed. I don't know in the history of this country. Even now I wonder, these 600 of those people sitting in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, have they thought of one bill, one private member's bill? No. I did in Madras legislature 2 bills. There I had also introduced a bill for the agrarian relations being changed. So I had Bombay bill, so I copied that and made some changes. I was a good lawyer. So I had the legal background to make this change. The ideology and the legality combined, I was able to help Malabar Kerala land reforms bill. This lady did not have all that background. So she was delaying. We first passed a stay of all eviction on the promise that we will bring a positive bill shortly. But this shortly never happened. So the MLAs began criticizing her. What is it? We have stayed all the evictions, litigation has been stayed, but we have not brought a positive bill for change. Where is the bill? She said it is not possible so soon. So the people said, ask Krishna Iyer, because I had a reputation by that time. And I said it can be done. And I produced a draft bill, of course, which she moved, and she got it passed. And that is how land reforms bill. Curiously enough, the Supreme Court it went up and it was struck down because there was a definition of family which Subbarao thought was arbitrary. So he said the definition of family is arbitrary, therefore it is unconstitutional, and the whole act depends on this definition, therefore the whole bill, he struck down the whole act. Some minor changes, P.T. Chacko moved again and then it was passed. That is how we had the land reforms, the best land reforms bill at that time in the state, the country, we had it passed.
So the land reforms initiated during that period, how would you evaluate their success today?
So land reforms did not cover urban land, it is only agricultural land. That is what handicap we are. Today we find only concrete pillars everywhere, concrete towers, because the Western influence, we had industries here. The result was all the agriculture was never developed and urban land was not covered by our land reforms. Although it did produce some hostility because the big landlords or the fabulous Fabian type, or the, what is this, those days we did not have industrial, but the pre-industrial period of Kerala was very backward agriculture, poor agriculture, and that because the communists struggled for land reforms, we had the tenant struggles, number of cases we had, but what did happen was there was another exploitation in the state, that was the field of education. Mundacheri, Professor Mundacheri himself had to resign, although he was a professor, because the communal hold, the Christian hold upon institutions, it was entirely communal. The Iyer Service Society had its own schools and colleges. The Christians dominated the field of education. Everything was Christian. The bishops, the church, they became the owners of schools. And they began making money. It was like investment in industry. They invested in schools and colleges. So schools and colleges were all Christian, heavy fees, and fees were paid, and they made it a prosperous industry. Then Mundacheri, a victim of this very communal politics, because he was a communist. He was a real communist, not like my saying, but I was a quasi-communist. He was an actual communist. He went to China, came back, and so he resigned, and he thought education must be liberated from this communal hold of the Christian church. So he thought in terms of an education bill. We brought a bill, and that bill made the entire community, Muslim community had its few institutions, Christian community had large institutions. They became our enemies. They started what is called Vimojana Samaram. This is how the Vimojana Samaram began. When the Christian community was going against us, there was another factor. The Americans were not particularly, the American government was not particularly happy with communist government somewhere in Kerala. So they were also looking for an opportunity to throw us out. So I was Home Minister, so I knew what was happening. What happened was, many Christians were paid huge sums of money by Americans. They were paid saying, under the innocent name of do chanting in the name of a father. So the church would be paid money for that purpose. So funded by the Americans, the church became a powerful instrument for overthrowing us. They began developing paramilitary for young people, all given military training, and suddenly they thought of overthrowing our government. So they began what is called Vimojana Samaram, liberation movement. This liberation movement had a powerful Christian support, but they did not want to make it a Christian movement because already the C.P. Ramaswamy had done quite a lot of harm to the Christians by Maman Mapla and company. All those people were not allowed to come forward. The banking was in their hands, the schools were in their hands, the hospitals were in their hands. So the country's development economy was church controlled. Ramaswamy Iyer had seen this and had fought, and ultimately he had to leave because they attacked him. Here, a similar movement was ideologically sound, started by Mundacheri. He had no interest to foster, but he had a cause to sponsor. So Mundacheri started this education movement. I drafted his bill, many sections, because I was a competent lawyer at that time. And we moved this bill, it was passed, and they challenged it, not in the court. Of course, it went to the Supreme Court. It actually upheld our bill. After all this tumult, the Supreme Court virtually upheld our bill. But in the country, the youth, the Christian youth were given training in children, so a violent movement was started inside the country. They opposed us, opposed the movement, opposed the government, and they got hold of an Iyer to be the head, so that you can't consider it a Christian movement. Mandatha Padmanabhan became the head. Mandatha Padmanabhan was nominally the head. The vitality came all from the church, and with American money and the church supplying the youth power, they were able to make a successful, fairly successful movement. But because I was a clever lawyer, I was able to outwit them. I said, no firing. They were waiting for some firing, so that every firing means you lose your credibility and they gain. And what happened was, a crisis developed. At that time, the AICC had a meeting in Ooty. So Nehru was coming, and Indira Gandhi was the president of the Congress, Nehru was the prime minister. And here was a struggle in Kerala between the communists and the church, the non-communists and the communists. And I was making it impossible for them to gain power, because I said no firing at all. So you can't accuse us of violence and things like that. Actually, the communists were to be violent, but we were not violent. And I made the prison reform so attractive that even the Congress could not find fault with us. In fact, one Congress minister came up and told me in Tellicherry, I happened to be in Tellicherry, he said, you are prisons minister, but you are making prisons a paradise. It's so happy for people to come into your prisons because they get free food, free games, free sports, everything is so attractive. And then they have served their term, they are going out. I said, yes, my present policy is reformation, not deterrence. That was my policy, and I carried it out. In fact, I got the idea from Stockholm, where I had gone at the time for a peace conference, and I had seen many prisons in European countries, and I adopted all the progressive forces factors there in the Kerala prisons. Kerala prisons were the best prisons in the whole country at that time, most progressive, most educative, most reformatory, never violent, never criminal, never cruel, that kind of thing we had. But so these people were violent because they had large forces and lots of resources. The opposition, Mandatha Padmanabhan's Vimojana Samaram party. There was a crisis in the country. And so the Nambudiri part said, what is it, we are not able to develop because we are lost in this struggle. So you better go and tell Nehru what is happening. You are the Home Minister, you tell him what is happening in his Congress party's name, happening in Kerala, and this must stop, because if we are going to be overthrown by violence, it's very bad. Elected government being overthrown by violence. So I went to Delhi, I went to Ooty, met Pandit Jawaharlal. When I was there, all the good congressmen were out of this movement. Krishna Iyer was not in it. Damodara Menon, there was C. Damodara Menon at that time, he was the Congress president. He was not in it. All of them were there. When I went there, they told me, Krishna Iyer, the only hope for you is meet Nehru, because he will find fault with these people. He is himself an idealist. Don't negotiate, otherwise you won't have any chance. Nobody else would support you, because they were all somehow getting rid of the Communist Party by gaining state power. So I met Nehru. And he invited me and my wife also had come with me. Both of us went there. Then when he heard part of my story, he said, no, you please talk to Indira Gandhi. She is the president of the Congress. So politics means party Congress, party politics. So you talk to her. He called Indu, please come, talk to Krishna Iyer about Kerala. So I went there, he talked to Indu, she listened to all these violent stories about the Vimojana Samaram, but did nothing. She simply listened to it because she was part of the whole game. Unlike Nehru, she was not that kind of idealist to keep quiet, to intervene and say, no, you cannot do this. She would not tell the Congress. She was inspiring the Congress to success. Nehru was second. Nehru told me, I will condemn it. Jawaharlal Nehru sympathized with me and condemned it in Coimbatore. He said, I do not agree for the Congress party or any party to throw out an elected government by violence. But what is the use of mere words? When he went back, the AICC moved a resolution saying you must dismiss the government, which could be possible only under 356. But how can you overthrow a government which was not violent? On the other hand, the opposition was violent. They said we will forcibly occupy the chairs of the ministers. That's what this Madhas Vasudhavan said. And all the communal forces, the Iyer Service Society, the Irava Communism, the Muslim League, all these people joined together. So communalism versus communism. This was how it became possible in the picture, political picture transformed in this degenerate fashion. And the congressmen, when they found that they were not able to gain power by their violence, because I was, if I may say so, too clever for them. And they were not particularly intelligent people either. R. Shankar was there. All these people were all midgets. They did not have the shrewdness of Rajaji. Rajaji, had he been here, he would have found some method. Anyway, that did not happen. So the AICC passed a resolution saying that 356 must be applied and the communist government must go. Nehru himself had said here at the airport, Ooty, when he was returning, I invited him, please come and see Kerala yourself, please come. So Nehru came. Nehru came to Trivandrum. You got that photograph?
Yes, I saw that.
So 3 days he spent saying, I will find a solution. He made 3 suggestions. 1, Section 11 of the Education Act must be suspended. 2, there was a firing in one place. That must be judicially inquired into. Yes, okay. And one other point also, 3. We had a party meeting on these 3 points raised by Jawaharlal Nehru. Judicial inquiry into firing. I am the Home Minister. We will come with a clear case of why we did it and justifying it. I have no apprehension at all because I always demanded whenever there was firing a judicial inquiry. Achyuta Menon said, Achyuta Menon opposed it. He said we cannot agree to a judicial inquiry because our policemen, they fought against violence and they will be demoralized if we agree to a judicial inquiry. I said no demoralization, truth must be found out. There is no objection at all. There is no objection. We must have a judicial inquiry. It was approved by the general body because I said I am Home Minister. I know what it means, what case we have, what case the other side has. So, and Section 11 suspension, we agree. Let us suspend it. And so the next day we met. We told Nehru, we agree on all your 3 points. The 3rd point was some 50 charges against our government by Ashok Mehta in Parliament. I had already replied to every charge raised by him, saying it is a charge against the persons who moved it, not against us. Because we were thoroughly justified all the points you have raised. These were the 3, I said, look into the judiciary, that any court find out what our reply is. I have drafted the reply. I have met all the charges. So Nehru was perplexed. All 3 points he raised, we had agreed. So he went and told his party, those people are agreeing with my points. What can I do? They said, you are not come to negotiate with them, but to dismiss them. Your mandate by the party is, by all of us is, dismiss them, don't talk to them, negotiate them and all that. So Nehru was perplexed. So the 3rd day, he was coming out to the guest house, since he was leaving, as Home Minister, I went there and asked Nehru, I said, Panditji, you have come all the way, we have accepted all the points you have raised, what more, what is your solution? This confusion must stop, this chaos, this violent chaos must stop, we must be able to run a government. I was so perplexed. That is what you saw in the photograph. A perplexed Nehru, almost fainting. He was fainting. And I felt so sad that great Nehru could not meet his own party men. because we were on the side of social justice, they were not. And eventually, when the Congress party passed a resolution, as a party loyalist, he applied, he as government, Prime Minister, he dismissed our government under 356. This is what happened. I think, I do not know what exactly is the truth. I think he did it because the party mandate obligated him to do it. Otherwise, he would not have done it. This is how it is, 356.
So the subsequent development of the jurisprudence on 356 and the development of Indian federalism, can you reflect a bit on that?
No, this 356 showed that federalism was hollow. Central government was really in power. They had resources and they could give you money if you obey them. They would not give you grants if you do not obey them. So federalism became a mockery. Its real strength was autonomy for the states, but autonomy plus financial stability. That was entirely dependent on the center. What is more, if the center was displeased with you, they could unscrupulously use 356. It was an unscrupulous move under 356 by which we were dismissed. And there was so much of criticism of that. Man like Patanjali Shastri, former Chief Justice at that time, he said this is atrocious. How can you dismiss a government under 356 when there is nothing wrong with them? You have not found anything wrong with them. The governor has not told you that this is what has been done, this is against the constitution, that is against the constitution, nothing at all. So all right-thinking people thought something wrong had been done, which means something wrong against federalism in spirit has been done. So the center became a power, a Congress dictatorship. It was a Congress dictatorship everywhere. This is how I look upon these 356 implications were that federalism itself lost its credibility among thinking people, and we had to accept it because they had the power, and that's what happened.
And then you became a judge. And then you became a judge. So
yes. Then I became a judge. My whole career became judicial. I was a judge here for 2 or 3 years, but I performed successfully as a judge, although for a few years only in the Kerala state. Kerala state was a weaker state, small state, but still I was successful, and changes took place there also. Indira Gandhi came to power. Nehru died. Actually, Nehru had great appreciation for me, if I may say so. The man is dead, so I must say that he was my ideological guru in a way. And I wrote to him a letter after visiting Stockholm for a peace conference. I had gone there. And on my way back, China was being given all the assistance by the Chinese diplomat, the ambassador there. But Indian ambassador said, you are not an official delegation, so I can't give you any help. That means we could not meet the Chinese charge. The Chinese said so many false things about India, and we could not meet them because we had no, even a typewriter we did not have. We did not have resources. So I wrote a letter to Nehru. Any conference, international conference, whether official or non-official, where China and Pakistan are parties, you must be you must tell your ambassadors, you must go all out to help these people. Your delegation, whether it is official or non-official. This should be the policy, but that was not the policy by which we were allowed to accept all that the Chinese and Pakistanis said against India. We were powerless. This is very bad. And Nehru wrote to me a reply saying, I agree with your suggestion, and I am circulating your letter to all the embassies in the country. Who else will do it? When I criticize his government and his ambassadors, he tells me, yes, I agree with you, and I am circulating your letter to all our embassies. But Well, by the time I reached here and I received this letter, he had died. He had flown from, what is that place? Which he liked very much, or in the Himalayas.
Dehradun?
Dehradun. He was staying in Dehradun. There he has written, I am very grateful to you. And there is a beautiful letter by him there. I am grateful to you for looking after me so well. I am leaving you, but with so full of gratitude. I wrote a letter from London to him. He received it in Dehradun. He replied the same day. Nehru's great advantage was any letter received by him, he would reply, even if it is 2 a.m., he would sit up, finish the reply, and then go to sleep. So I received his reply here. By the time I reached from London, I received his reply. So I read his letter for the meeting here. There was a public meeting on his death in this Bailan here. And I read, this is what Nehru said, but I criticized his government and he agreed. And this is his reply. I read that. This is how it happened. Thereafter we went off. Then because Mohan Kumaramangalam was a great friend of mine. He was a communist. But personally, at a legal level, juristic level, he was, and he appreciated my advocacy, my capacity as a lawyer. And we were great friends. When he reached the Supreme Court, when he became a minister under Indira Gandhi, he telephoned me. I was a lawyer. I was just a humble judge here in the Kerala High Court, low in the rank. So I cannot be there. Mohan Kumaramangalam wanted me to be in the Supreme Court. But he telephoned me and said, Krishna, you must come to Delhi. I want you to be a member of the Law Commission. I said, why should I come to the Law Commission? I'll be here as a judge. Law Commission has no power, but here I have some power. No, you must come because the Supreme Court must change. Supreme Court is very harsh on communists and all progressive ideas. They do not agree with Nehru and things like that. Nehru speaks of socialism, but the communist part, the judiciary is not socialist. They are all the other way about. Eventually, I agreed. I became a Law Commission member. He said, this is not the old Law Commission. Gajendra Gattar is going to be the chairman. It's a totally new and full of vitality, a good Law Commission. You must come, create some sound law and make some recommendations. So I went.
There was a report on free legal services.
A
report on free legal services?
A report on?
Free legal services for the poor.
No, when I was there, there was a demand for a free legal aid. But when I was a minister here, I had made already recommendations for legal aid. And the All India Law Ministers Conference, I presented that. Okay. It was appreciated very much. That the only state in the country at that time was the Kerala state, which produced a government plan for a free legal aid. So when I became a member of the Law Commission, the central government appointed me as chairman of a committee to propose a legal aid for the whole country, which I did. I had distinguished members, but I had to take the entire, we had no money, no resource. The finance department had not agreed. Only administrative sanction was given, and we did not have even a room or accommodation. And I became the chairman of that commission, traveled around the country with the law minister. I went to Andamans, I went to Lakshadweep, all these places where people really needed legal aid because they were also alienated from our own courts and our forensic system. So I made a radical report, and that report was the basis for all legal aid in the country. Later, some legislation was made. Bhagavati took up public interest litigation, which I had suggested. He had also taken up. And so we went forward with free legal aid. Legal aid was, in one sense, if I may not flatter myself, a creation of my report when I was member of the Law Commission, and the legal aid was subject of a commission by the central government. That's how it is. And after that legal aid scheme, I was elevated to the Supreme Court. In a recent article I had said I was 104th in the list, the rank of judges of the High Court. So I would not be considered for the Supreme Court because so junior a judge. But as a member of the Law Commission, that's a different category. There I was under Gajendra Gadkar. So the Chief Justice of India, Sikri, he asked Gajendra Gadkar said, had I known about Iyer during my time when I was Chief Justice, I would have taken him straight to the Supreme Court. Similarly, there was another judge who was Kerala judge, later became a judge of the Supreme Court. Ananda Shayar Vayagar, I forget his name. He also said the same thing, great thing about me. But Sikri said no, because Hegde, who had not been very intimately in Bangalore. I used to appear in the Bangalore court, in the Kuru court, even in Bangalore, when I was only a lawyer in Tellicherry. As I said, I was a great success at the bar in Tellicherry. But Sikri was told by Hegde. Hegde was the chairman of the land reforms, big peasants. They were against the land reforms. And they thought I was the real enemy, land reforms. I was against them. So this man, Hegde, went and told Sikri, this is a dangerous man, he was Home Minister in a communist government. Are you bringing him to the Supreme Court? He will destroy the court. So Sikri said no. So I was out. But history has its own eccentricities. There was the supersession. So 3 senior judges of the Supreme Court were superseded. They resigned because Indira Gandhi wanted somebody else. So in protest they resigned. And Ray came as Chief Justice from a Ray of Bengal, who was fairly junior judge in the Supreme Court. He called me and said, I propose to recommend you to Supreme Court. But please realize it is not Indira Gandhi's choice, it is my choice. I don't believe it, but there it is. He said so. And I became a judge of the Supreme Court. And then became a new career for me from 1973 onwards. Unfortunately, the first victim of my becoming an independent judge was Indira Gandhi.
That is exactly what I want to ask you about. 23rd June 1975. Yes. What were the events leading up to it, and were you aware of the consequences of your decision?
When in 1973, I became a judge of the Supreme Court. Thereafter, my wife had some heart problems. We went to America, came back. She died, and I was in a very sad situation at that time. To lose one's wife so close is losing your life virtually. So, all the energy in me, the vitality, the militancy was gone. But anyway, I did some good work in the Supreme Court, 1974. And Gokhale was the law minister. Gokhale was close to me in the Law Commission. And Indira Gandhi, meanwhile, lost her membership because the Allahabad High Court decided against her election. Various serious charges were raised against her. You spent so much money, you used government resources and all that.
Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha's decision.
Yes, yes. Then, when all these things took place, they held against her the election. So she ceased to be an MP. The only source was an appeal to the Supreme Court. So an appeal was filed. I became, accidentally, I was the vacation judge at that time. And Gokhale, my close friend, he telephoned me. Krishna Iyer, I want to meet you. He did not expect my response. I said, why do you want to meet me? A reply which he did not expect, because when the law minister says, I want to meet you, I would say, please come. On the other hand, I said, why do you want, please tell me why you want to meet me? Because I had also some suspicion that not things were so straight. They were trying to influence me and get a stay. So I said, why do you want to? He said, the Prime Minister's election has been set aside. She wants to file an appeal and move for stay. I said, if you want to move for stay, before we as a Supreme Court judge go to the Supreme Court, not to be at home. So he went to the Supreme Court, filed the case. I heard the case next day. Next day I heard the case. And Palkivara appeared for her. And Chandni Bhushan appeared against for Raj Narayan. This case was argued before me. That decision was a model for the whole country, even today. Because the argument, when they began the argument, I did not want this case to be postponed. Usually they postpone, and things never get an end. And the whole nation was in tension. Here is a Prime Minister, very powerful Prime Minister. Her election has been set aside. What is this judge going to do? So, I told Palkivara, how long will you take? I must finish this case today, 3 hours. The other man, 3 hours. Then I said 1 hour for response. But that means I cannot have lunch, then I won't be able to finish the case. I said, I forgo my lunch. The advocates, both of them said, we also forgo on it. I said, we'll continue. From 10 o'clock, we went on arguments till 5:30 and finished the case. I said, the judgment will come tomorrow, not 2 weeks later as now. Sometimes these people never write a judgment, and sometimes they take so much time. Arrears is the rule in our country now, of our judicial system. So the whole case was finished at 5:30. Next, until night, till midnight, I dictated the order. It's a classic order. The order was so beautiful that 2 days later, when I went to America, the American Bar Association Chicago branch invited me because they saw this judgment. How did they get the judgment? You know what happened? The case was heard, judgment was delivered the next day, because I told the Supreme Court, sit up at night, make 5,000 copies. It must be given to parties, whoever wants it free. Otherwise, you apply for copies, the stamp is correct there, it is returned, then corrected, then again, 1 week later you present it. The other side, as we heard, that kind of thing will go on. You will never get a copy because the judge would not have signed it. This is the kind of thing happening now. To avoid that, I said, make copies the night. Tomorrow morning, I must have all the copies ready. So when I delivered the judgment, there was a huge crowd in the court. Everyone was given a copy of the judgment. It reached America, and the Chicago Bar Association, American Bar Association Chicago, read from my judgment and said, this is the great judge, we are giving a reception now. So it went off very well, and that way, but I did not remove her.
Conditional stay.
Conditional stay, and continued her, saying, I am not for a coup in the country for the sake of this particular petition. That's how we went on. And thereafter I became her election petition changed the law. She changed the law. And the bench upheld her election and reversed the really she won in my court in one sense. So many people said, you are responsible for the emergency, because she passed an emergency order that night after I delivered the judgment.
Did you expect that reaction?
Eh?
Did you expect such a reaction?
No, I did not. I did not expect that reaction. But she did everything through law. Actually, I am told she invited the army chief, the navy chief, and the other man, and the air chief, and told them, look here, why don't you take over? They said nothing doing. Nero's tradition was so strong. Civilian government, no armed forces anywhere near administration. So they said, no military operations at all. So she passed this declaration of emergency, which was eventually upheld by the Constitutional Bench. The argument was, if somebody is shot in the court by the policeman, and that when the killed person, some relation of his moved the court cannot hear. That power has been taken away by this emergency. It was extraordinary that this bench upheld it. Chandrachud, Bhagavati, all these people were there. All fundamental rights, everything is all eclipsed. But they upheld it. When they upheld it, there was an end of it. That's how it went on.
Okay. So,
7 years I was on the bench, and even the other day somebody told me the Bar Association, we are indebted to you. We are all judgment debtors under you. That's what they said about my performance during these 7 years when I retired. It was a real experience because I could make a change in the court's approach to problems. Socialistic, progressive, liberal, at the same time, again, I gave socialism, secularism and democracy some meaning on the words used in the constitution.
your judgment in Ratnam municipality case, it broadened the scope of Article 32?
Very much.
What do you think of the treatment of Article 32 today?
Under Queen Victoria, at that time, we had three courts, chartered high courts as they were called, Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. My father was an advocate of Madras, was not even an advocate, if I may say so. You asked me about my father. He belonged to a poor family. In that sense, I also belonged to a poor family. My grandfather was a schoolmaster, was a teacher in a primary school. I think his salary was 2 rupees or 3 rupees per month. Of course, that is equal to 2 lakhs today. This was long ago when my grandfather, I am myself 95. My grandfather must have been 195 now. So 200 years ago, 2 rupees was salary for him. He had 2 sons, both of them were lawyers. He could not afford to educate them in the law college. So when they passed, they graduated because Polgart had a Victoria College, which is a good college, and he could graduate there. But beyond that, to go to Madras for law college was beyond his means. So my father was a pleader. That is, without taking a law degree, you can still practice in a particular court. In those days, that was the practice. But if you have been a pleader for 20 years or some such long period, you become an advocate. And so he became an advocate. And as an advocate, he practiced in Tellicherry district court. And I also followed him as a junior to begin with. But before long, I could excel him. It all depends, you see, in the court. If you are lucky, you get good practice. And if you are successful, more clients come. That's how I became a successful civil and criminal lawyer of Tellicherry. That's how my father also was successful in that place.
So then you entered public life.
Eh?
You entered public life then. Member of the opposition in the Madras legislature?
That is true. But then they are disconnected pieces. I was practicing in Judiciary, but before that, when I was a good student in the Victoria College, and I used to read a lot of current contemporary politics in the Victoria College in those days. They used to have foreign journals, especially British journals. 19th century and after, 20th century and after, these where socialist articles used to come. Just what is his name? Professor in London University, Professor, where all our great scholars, lawyers were there. They were all professors. Even Nehru was very much influenced by Professor
Fabian socialism.
Eh?
Fabian socialism?
Yes. Legend, Fabian socialism came from that professor,
Okay.
great professor. He fashioned Krishna Iyer, he fashioned Nehru, all these people were his students, and his name was a great name even in India, where young men go to England, they were his students. That's how it is. And his articles used to appear in the foreign journals. socialist, Fabian socialist. And I also was ideologically tending towards Fabian socialism in my thought. And when I became a lawyer, that got strengthened, because actually the realities of India would compel any conscientious man to become a Fabian socialist. And at that time, I was under the influence of Nehru. Nehru was a great influence on me, and he was a Fabian socialist. He was not a communist. In fact, he was not a communist at all, because communist principles were two vices which he could not tolerate probably. One was dictatorship of the proletariat, dictatorship. He was a democrat, every cell of him. And it's a fact.
Okay, sir. So another thing, what I wanted to ask you is the method of appointment of judges to the higher judiciary today.
On 2 points, I must say. One is appointment of judges is now done casually without any investigation. The outrageous thing that has happened is the collegium. Some 3 senior most judges by accident, they have become the collegium, and they choose people on their own favorite considerations, their own influences, private prejudices, various things they choose. No investigation into the antecedents, the social philosophy of the judge. The social philosophy of the judge is very important, but the collegium itself has no social philosophy and does not care for the social philosophy of the appointment. So it is that I plead for an appointment commission of a high stature, which itself has a certain philosophy, and with guidelines you must investigate, and a staff for investigation to the antecedents of the judge you are considering for the higher court, district judges to the high court judges to the Supreme Court. That is what is lacking. The other one is performance commission. I insist upon these two, appointment commission and performance commission. In America you have performance commission. A judge in California, a lady judge, Chief Justice, she postponed her election because she would not be elected otherwise. So simply she postponed her judgment, and after she was re-elected, she pronounced judgment. And there was a grievance. So the performance commission went into the matter, found she deliberately postponed for this purpose. So she was removed. So I would say that you should have a performance commission which has powers to investigate, and not really impeachment. We know that impeachment is absolutely futile and highly political. That's what Narasimha Rao has done in this country. The Ramaswamy's case, he has made it highly political, and thereafter if you impeach, a man was found guilty by 3 judges, the parliament, because of this man, Narasimha Rao's hint that you vote this way, vote that way. The judge survived and is now very happily at home. So I think the remedy for the situation today is an appointments commission. Judges who are incapable, they are not pronounced judgment at all. Can you imagine a judge who has not pronounced a judgment at all becoming a judge of the Supreme Court? A judge of Kerala who did not pronounce a judgment at all became a Chief Justice. Another judge who did not pronounce a judgment became a Chief Justice, and not pronounced a judgment as Chief Justice became a judge of the Supreme Court. What is this collegium? This collegium is a tamasha. It's entirely, what shall I say, using strong expressions is also bad, because basically the judiciary still commands a great credibility in the country. People say judicial inquiry, judicial inquiry. Why do they say judicial inquiry? Why do they have more cases? Because they have great faith in the court. The court has not been written off by the people. They still have great faith in the court. But the difficulty is there are certain persons who are most undesirable, sex-wise, corruption-wise, found guilty of corruption, taken to the Supreme Court by a collegium. What is the authority for a collegium? Where is the constitutional provision? None. As I can see, there is no provision in the Constitution which authorizes the taking away of the power of appointment by the President, who is to be governed by the executive, the cabinet.
In consultation
with... is upset by this collegium. It should be, but there is no strong Prime Minister. Had Nehru been the Prime Minister, it would have been different. Somehow, I do not want to say that this is a very weak Prime Minister, but Manmohan Singh has not been able to control. He is only this last week or so he made one statement. The judiciary should not interfere with the executive. It's policy matter. First time, he should have said this 5 years ago and told them, your business is to judge. Your business is to apply the philosophy of the Constitution to various executive actions. That's not what you are doing. You are interfering, making all kinds of remarks, strange remarks you make. This cannot be made.
Let your verdict give us the answer.